Research and innovation are a bedrock of transformation and socio-economic development of any society. As such, in 2009, the East African Legislative Assembly passed the Inter-University Council for East Africa Act 2009. According to the Act, the Inter-University Council for East Africa, popularly known as IUCEA, is a strategic institution of the East African community, mandated to coordinate the development of higher education and research in the East African region.
Number two is to link universities together so that they can work in the region. But that linkage should not only be for East African community alone. It should be linkage within the East African community and beyond, because universities in East Africa need to work with universities outside East Africa. That's the only way that we can become not just a local something, but also international players in the higher education sector.
IUCEA performs this function by facilitating contacts among universities in East Africa, provide a forum for discussion on a wide range of academic and other matters relating to higher education councils and commissions in the partner states, and facilitating the attainment of high and comparable higher education academic standards in East Africa. Currently, IUCEA has a membership of over 130 universities, but its mandate extends to more than 300 universities operating in the region. Today, the Inter-University Council for East Africa is celebrating 50 years of existence at a time when higher education is experiencing rapid changes and transformation due to science and technological advancement around the globe.
IUCEA is the institution that survived the first collapse of the community. So that has a kind of inspiration for new institution of the community. And that means IUCEA should be leading. What we celebrate is not the number of years, but the achievement. And that is very important.
I need just to thank the leaders of the East African community who decided that the IUCEA is a good body, it survived and it should be supported. And they indeed came up to support it, to be one of the major organizations within the East African community. And I think we need to thank them for that vision. I want to thank them also for supporting the universities through and encouraging this collaboration, because otherwise, if they did not come in to support, probably the collaboration also would not work. So we must thank them and to congratulate the entire IUCEA on reaching this mark. And we are 50. Let's look forward to the next 50 years, to celebrate the next 50 years when we are much better than we are today.
50 years is a long time. There is time now for Inter-University Council for East Africa to reflect on what they have been able to achieve that far.
I should congratulate the Inter-University Council of East Africa for what they're doing. They have done a lot of good groundwork for the region, for us to move as a region and to make the better gains that are ahead of us.
Congratulations to IUCEA for the 50th anniversary. IUCEA, you are doing great.
I congratulate the achievements of Inter-University Council and the East Africa community in large.
I want first of all to congratulate IUCEA. It's not easy to have an organization that is majorly supported by member states that have probably different programs, and also with the donor agencies that have come on board, and sustain that for 50 years.
As IUCEA celebrates 50 years of bringing us together as universities in East Africa, I wish IUCEA many great years, integrating us among ourselves. And also the thing that IUCEA has done very well is helping us at a glance quickly to see what is happening elsewhere in the globe.
As we celebrate 50 years of IUCEA, we are very thankful, for all the assistance which has been given by IUCEA.
The origins of the Inter-University Council for East Africa, IUCEA, can be traced to 1970, when universities of Makerere, Nairobi and Dar es Salaam formed the Inter-University Committee, IUC, to facilitate research and collaboration among these East African universities. This collaboration was timely, as these universities had started operating as separate entities due to the eventual dissolution of the University of East Africa. 7 years later, in 1977, the Inter-University Committee remained a formidable institution that championed great standards of higher education in the region.
In 1980, the vice-chancellors of the three universities, University of Dar es Salaam, Makerere University and the University of Nairobi, thought that this inter-university committee is their baby. So they wanted to make sure that it functions well, and so they met in Nairobi. And they also invited their permanent secretaries who were responsible for education. And in that meeting they resolved to strengthen that cooperation and to change the name of the Inter-University Committee into the Inter-University Council for East Africa. That is when the Inter-University Council for East Africa was established.
The IUCEA has come a long way, thanks to the inexhaustible energies of its pioneer IUC staff and the long-serving Executive Secretary, the late Eric Chigozie. He was later succeeded by Professor Chacha Nyaigoti Chacha, who secured significant research funding for the institution and steered it for 10 years before relinquishing it to his successor, the now late Professor Mayunga Nkunya.
I served as the Executive Secretary of the Inter-University Council for 10 years. I was privileged because I think, apart from Eric Chigozie, who had served during a time when there were no proper mechanisms of even how to remunerate the staff. When I served, the governments were very supportive, and they honored me with 2 terms of 5 years each.
My first agenda when I became Executive Secretary, that we should make the Inter-University Council for East Africa to be a true institution of the East African community, rather than an association of universities. That was quite difficult because it was, vice-chancellors, they were enjoying that, power of making decisions and so on. And this power will not be there anymore. I had difficulties. The first reaction was no. I think not the first reaction, the reaction was no. But all documents say this is an institution of the ESC. If you say no, you're fooling yourself.
The late Professor Nkunya laid the groundwork for the Federation of East Africa as a common higher education area in 2017, negotiated the Centers of Excellence project with the World Bank, and was very instrumental in building the new home for IUCEA. He also played a pivotal role in the development of a number of tools that inform quality assurance and qualification framework in communities. All the benefits of this were harnessed during the time his successor, Professor Alexandre Liambabaje, steered the institution through the implementation phase of its programs and projects.
He also negotiated the project of Centers of Excellence with the World Bank. I have just been fortunate to arrive at a time when negotiations were almost completed. And we're talking about Centers of Excellence on embedded mobile systems in Arusha. We are talking about the 24 Centers of Excellence funded by the World Bank in 8 countries under the coordination of IUCEA. We're talking about centers of excellence in biomedical studies, cardiovascular in Tanzania, oncology center of excellence in Uganda, the one on e-health here in Rwanda and biomedical engineering, nutrition center of excellence in Burundi, and we have the center of excellence for renal diseases that is in Kenya. And those centers of excellence came with facilitation of scholarships. And we had also another scholarship with Kyungdong University. We negotiated with Kyungdong and University, and now we send 30 students every year to South Korea. We can say that it is a time where we started also our regional conference and our regional journal, scientific journal, in collaboration with ISTECO, the East Africa Science and Technology Commission.
Tools and instruments such as policies, guidelines and frameworks which were considered as key building blocks for the operationalization of the East African Common Higher Education Area had to be developed. These collaboratively facilitated staff and student mobility, research and innovation activities, among other things within the region. For example, the East African Qualifications Framework for Higher Education is designed to serve as useful instrument for guiding higher education institutions in curriculum development, delivery assessment and certification, which are in line with the needs of the labour market. Then the East African Quality Assurance Network. This was established to act as an arm of higher education harmonization within the East African community. The quality assurance practitioners ensure the harmonization efforts put in place are used and can effectively contribute to regional social economic development.
In terms of where we are, we have the baseline in terms of what is required, what are the tools, what informs the key roles at institutional and at program level, because those are the two main areas.
Such instruments and tools were fully supported by the IUCEA, and as a result, the East African Community was declared a Common Higher Education Area in May 2017.
There are very many benefits to that declaration, and if we can make that become a reality for the region, I believe that will make a very great contribution towards the integration of East Africa.
Today, IUCEA is where it is due to commitment of the partner states and the Council's leadership who have steered this institution beyond the borders of the East African community.
Our global goal is that we want to see happening transformative higher education with a globally competitive, knowledge-based and industrialized economy for IUCEA integration.
To realize the benefits of the 2017 declaration, the IUCEA works closely with regional accreditation bodies such as the National Council for Higher Education in Uganda, all the commissions and councils in all the partner states as key players to achieving the common higher education area by regulating higher education.
The handbook for quality assurance of higher education, which came out in 2010. This was developed with full participation of the National Council for Higher Education, alongside the then Commission for Higher Education in Kenya and the Tanzanian Commission, or Tanzania Commission for University Education.
We have been involved in the development of the East African Quality Assurance Framework, East African Qualification Framework for Higher Education, the regional scholarship and the student and the staff mobility policies and operational guidelines. So currently we have such kind of scholarships which are regional. East African Community harmonized the accreditation framework and the East African harmonized the credit and the transfer systems.
Already, some countries of the East African community have embraced the new harmonization initiatives put in place by IUCEA.
Our people have gained a lot of capacity building, because one of the greatest problems now is harmonization program. The fact that we're not isolated. Whatever we harmonize, whatever in terms of programs that are being instituted in different institutions, they are harmonized, and the skills development is also part of it. So when it comes to accreditation of institutions, we consult our sister countries in the region so that whatever we do is of the right quality.
The Common Higher Education Area Committees, as well as the Quality Assurance Committee, are working on structures that allow students who are in different education systems to know at what point they enter university and how they can use their time in high school to move quickly into universities.
We have input that we bring from our own accreditation system to align with the IUCEA. And when that happens, then we are speaking to each other. And so when a student comes out of a program in Kenya and wants to move, say for a master's at Makerere or at Dar es Salaam or at the University of Rwanda, then they understand if that program has followed the same IUCA benchmarks, then the student will know how to enter there. But it's a process where we are respecting the autonomy of the member states, but also seeing the viability and advantage of having that mobility, where IUCA now sets the benchmarks and we align with them.
Here in Burundi, we have now developed our own standards and guidelines for higher education, for accreditation, and we feel that IUCEA can help to develop capacity and so that our colleagues could, for example, when they are called for external evaluation of programs for accreditation, we should make sure that they have the skills needed.
This considerable institutional growth has always necessitated continuous adjustments, fine-tuning of policy strategies, and interventions to ensure that the IUCEA continues to effectively deliver on its mandate.
At the moment, the Common Market Protocol is in force, and that is where the issues of the Inter-University Council fall, because the Common Market Protocol has 4 freedoms and 2 rights. The freedom of movement, of goods, of services, and of personnel, and also the right to residence and the right to establishment. So the ministry's work is supposed to be to ensure that as far as education is concerned, the harmonized higher education area is implemented. That means the common qualifications in the East African community should be implemented, the standards, the courses, and so on. All this should be standardized to enable Ugandan to go and work in Burundi, or to enable someone from South Sudan to go and work in Kenya without having to go through another exam. So that is what the common higher education area is about.
Our role as the Minister of East African Community Affairs is to monitor how far they are going with the implementation and whether the harmonization is going on, and whether there are laws that are changing or there are policies that they are changing. So we actually concentrate on ensuring that the Ministry of Education is reaching out to the universities and ensuring that they implement the basics that ensure that we have actually the academic curricula, and which actually allows us to fit within the region.
The IUCEA therefore harmonizes the curricula in all these universities so that wherever the student goes is acceptable as a bona fide citizen and a graduate of East Africa.
Ours is to make sure that we create mechanisms for strengthening the linkages between the national commissions, the universities, and all other institutions of higher learning in the region, generally speaking.
The Inter-University Council has been very consistent in trying to realize its mandate. And for that matter, it becomes now easy for graduates within our universities in East Africa, indeed to now easily with the academic qualification be acceptable in any of the partner states within the East African community. And that is something to encourage. I would say that is very unique in the true meaning of it, because in other parts of the world, in other parts of possibly Africa, that has not yet been realized. I would therefore be proud as a Secretary General to be associated with the Inter-University Council and continue encouraging the University Council to pursue that mandate of connecting and connecting people and services within East Africa. And in fact, as it is today, we would, because of that role, the East African community is ranked as one of the fastest growing, or actually the leading regional economic blocs, because of the role the Inter-University Council and other institutions are playing.
Currently, the institution supports a variety of programs and projects such as Research and Innovation Coordination Program, EAC Centers of Excellence for ICT, Staff and Students Mobility Program, the Eastern and Southern Africa Higher Education Centers of Excellence Project ASE2, the East Africa Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration Project ESTRIP, and the East African Qualification Framework for Higher Education Program. As a coordinating unit for the region, IUCEA promotes the development of high-quality research and innovation programs to stimulate the development of centers of research and innovation excellence. This has been further enhanced by the establishment of a research unit at the headquarters of the IUCEA, which is dedicated to research and innovation for the various member universities in the EAC region.
There was one, for example, called VICRES that was focusing on the Lake Victoria research. It was multi-sectoral and multi-dimensional in terms of thematic approach. And we supported the researchers in East Africa to grow their career as professionals, but also to train young people who were coming on board as graduate students who were studying under them, under their supervision.
One of the things that unites East Africa is Lake Victoria. So you can imagine the countries around the lake can study the flora and fauna and the economies of that particular region and look at it from the perspective of the different borders around the lake. So research collaboration is another benefit.
The network that Inter-University Council for East Africa brings is enormous. Enormous to the extent that if we were optimally utilizing these facilities, I think the quality standards that, our East African community higher education area is looking for will be highly fulfilled.
IUCEA provides support to academic staff to provide their services among the functions of universities in teaching, research, and community engagements in any of the member universities outside their countries, but within the EAC partner states.
We developed staff mobility policy and the operationalization program. So we get application, more than 100 academic staff needing to go to provide support of teaching, research, and community engagement in other universities in the countries, in the other East African community countries, with the potential for sharing experiences.
Averagely, about 40 staffs across the East African community have been supported by IUCEA for the past 5 years.
Staff mobility program is quite important for my career mobility. One, we get to interact with other colleagues and learn from them. And I can tell you for a fact that we have our own traditions of teaching locally. But when we move and see how others are doing it differently, we also pick 1 or 2 lessons from them. At Mbarara University, I was so surprised that students don't have the temptation to cheat in exams. And at Bishop Stuart, I learned that before students write exams, they actually have to confirm their coursework marks, a practice that is not predominantly established in our own mother institution here in Kenya.
Similarly, students are provided with opportunities to learn from the unique approaches that exist between universities in the EAC countries and beyond. The East African Scholarship Program is a partnership program of financial cooperation between EAC and the German Development Bank KfW, which was started in 2019.
Specifically, it supports training of highly qualified young East African master's students in the areas of mathematics, engineering, informatics, science, technology, and business science.
The purpose of the scholarships is to encourage students to study master's degrees from countries other than their own, facilitate networking of the students who are on the program with various stakeholders in the EAC, and thereby promote regional integration. The IUCEA is implementing and coordinating an ambitious project, the Eastern and Southern Africa Higher Education Centers of Excellence Project ASE2, an initiative of participating African governments and the World Bank.
So the project was conceived to support the development of science and technology by building capacity at higher level, and it set a lot of targets to achieve that. First, it set a target of having a graduate from postgraduate of 3,500, increasing the number of publications to 1,500, but also develop partnerships with private sector. Around 300 partnerships were to be developed, and increase the mobility of faculty and students across the region.
Additionally, as African governments embrace industrialization as part of the strategy for sustainable economic development and job creation, key sectors of the economy still face a challenge of inadequate skills and expertise to support them. The IUCEA, therefore, is coordinating the implementation of another ambitious 5-year World Bank project that aims at closing a skills gap in the key sectors of the economy, particularly in agricultural processing, transport, energy, manufacturing and ICT. The East Africa Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration Project, EASTRIP, is designed to address skills shortage and mismatch by providing technical, financial and industrial partnership to improve the relevance and quality of training programs in selected regional flagship technical vocational education and training TVET institutes.
This project has 3 components. We have a component 1, which is focusing on improving the TVET institution in terms of infrastructure, the teachers or the tutors or the learning environment, and building very state-of-the-art laboratories or workshops for TVET learning. That is component 1. And in some cases, some of these TVET institutions are building up brand new state-of-the-art campuses, but they match with the current trend in terms of training needs of the industry and the productive sector. That is component 1. Component 2, we are looking at how to improve at national level, the policy level, the ministries responsible for TVET, to improve the policy environment for enabling TVET within the respective countries to move with the current trends in TVET. And then there's the third component. This is the component 3, which is regional integration. This is where, as Inter-University Council, we are coordinating. Here we are focusing on a number of issues. One is harmonization of TVET qualification framework, and then occupational standard. Occupational standard, we are looking at the hands-on competences or skills which graduates from the TVET should have at the end of their learning process.
The East African Business Council, EABC, is the regional apex body of private sector associations and corporates in East Africa, with the single purpose of driving the East African community integration process through trade and investment.
The Occupational Standards Development Program within the East African community is a priority because it provides greater assurance to our local investment that the actual outcome of work done by the people within their industries, within their commerce and structures, would then equate to standards that are attainable for a value proposition of their goods.
Research and development must be at the center of agriculture transformation agenda in our countries. And that is the role of the universities today. And that connectivity must be there. So we must actually design or implement innovative models that would allow the private sector organizations like TAHA, who are directly dealing with magnitude number of farmers, to work with universities, to research and development centers in creating or facilitating solutions to these challenges that are facing farmers on the ground.
Through EABC, the IUCEA is building an industry-university partnership to enhance the relationship and also build a competitive private sector through knowledge generation, dissemination and absorption.
What we are going to do is to map out what are those skills that are required by the private sector, and then in terms of curriculum development or competence-based program, they are able to tailor or align those skills based on the demand by our industrial players and other players in the sectors.
In the desire to leverage on scientific knowledge as a key driver to economic growth and sustainable development, leaders in the EAC region explicitly decided to adopt a protocol on science, technology and innovation in a range of policy frameworks of the EAC Treaty. Consequently, a number of regional science, technology and innovation initiatives in support of the treaty were launched across the region, which later built momentum to necessitate the establishment of the East African Science and Technology Commission, IUCEA. Indeed, the IUCEA has effectively implemented its activities in the region and thereby proving that higher education plays a bigger role in regional integration. However, much as the EAC was declared a common higher education area, the education systems in the region are still not yet harmonized. Different countries are still running different education systems, which causes variations in the education curriculum within the region. However, following the enactment of the IUCEA Act 2009, which expanded IUCEA's mandate to include advising partner states on aspects of human resource development as well as research, some of these challenges are being addressed, but in a phased manner. For instance, the increasing number of IUCEA staffs has necessitated the institution to acquire its own head offices and other facilities appropriate for its function, image, and the working environment for its staff. 2 hectares of land in Chambogo has been allocated by government for the construction of the IUCEA head offices.
During those very difficult times, Uganda stood in for Inter-University Council to stay. And when we talk about the 50 years they have been here, much of the work has been done in Uganda. And many of the policies that have been this body, Inter-University Council, is using, there was a lot of effort, a lot of contribution from my ministry.
As IUCEA starts on another journey to mark 100 years and beyond, as it strives to reshape higher education in East Africa, key strategic recommendations were observed by some of the institution's stakeholders.
Well, my challenge to all of us in the region is to invest much in programs which are relevant to our students, such that upon graduation, people shouldn't be blaming our governments as to why they have not been employed.
There is also the need for the vice chancellors also to work together, okay, to agree on which areas that we need to begin fast-tracking on integration, so that we are able to pass this now to the deans of faculties to work together, so that when we are talking, for example, like veterinary medicine, then we agree on a common curricula.
In this university, which is mainly French-speaking, we have some limitations, especially with the language. And we hope that within these coming years, the flow of the mobility for our staff, for our students, will be improved for us for the sake of capacity building.
The Inter-University Council for East Africa needs to focus on inclusive participation of the female gender in higher education at every level.
I admire the integration with respect to leadership, that we are able to pick leaders from different countries and the systems that we have. We must continue that way so that leaders from different East African nations are able to participate and bring in growth. That is one of the greatest strengths of IUCEA, and we must continue.
Looking at the successes that the IUCEA has done is to say this is a body we need to strengthen even further so that it can help us to ensure quality in the higher education that we are implementing around the countries, and to help us collaborate in areas like research, and to also synergize the resources that we have as individual universities so that we can make the best use of the facilities at each of the universities.
With all these and more recommendations in place, the sky will be the limit as the Inter-University Council for East Africa pursues its vision of becoming the leading institution in the EAC with an exemplary common higher education for a prosperous and sustainable East African community.
I'm from Bukoba, which when I came here, it is easier to interact with the people, not only staff, but also the Ugandans in general.
I'm from Rwanda, and I was initially working with the National University of Rwanda. So coming here at the regional level, it was just a whole new experience. Here, yeah, you are shifting from your country going to another country, so there's culture, there is habits, so a lot's changed.
Few people get this opportunity. There are people who spend most of their lifetime working with one nationality. I'm glad I've worked with 6 nationalities.
We are very happy that it made 50 years when we are here, when we are the staff who are working here, and we know the history, the turbulence it has had to overcome, and we can only say congratulations.
As you recall, some of us when we are studying, looking at the Vice Chancellor, you could even finish the whole year or even during your time at the university without seeing a Vice Chancellor. But here you find that you are interacting with them as colleagues. So it's really a very good place, and it is exposure.
I pray that God will continue to bless IUCEA until it reaches even over 100 years. It should be seen as an achieving organization.
I have seen Inter-University Council growing in terms of mandate, and personally, the great achievement is, as a senior accountant, I've seen that my responsibilities, they have been keeping it growing.
I have liked working with IUCEA because we work as a team. We are a vibrant team. We are few people, but we can move mountains.